This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
In 2002, a Chicago developer named Neil Ornoff hired the architect David Hames and his firm, Papa George Hames, to design a 20-unit residential project on a corner site at 525 Kedzie Street in Evanston, Illinois, a northern suburb of Chicago. The alderman, the city councilman, was really fearful of the people who lived in the adjacent building and were concerned about losing views they had across the vacant parcel. So he asked the developer to work with them, recalled Hames. We designed a beautiful building, but the design required a small portion of the building to be a little bit taller than what the height limits in the code allowed. The site plan also required the developer to seek relief on a parking rule that required a 20-foot setback from the street to the building face to allow for on-street parking for the property, even though all of the parking for the building was going to be accommodated on-site within the building and concealed from view. These were routine and modest variance requests. But as Hames recalls, the neighbors simply said, no, we're going to oppose the project. So Hames went back to the drawing board and redesigned the facade on the side of the building that faced the neighbors, adding articulation and setbacks that made the building look better from the neighboring property, but increased project costs. This time the neighbors said, no, that's a very nice design, but we're still going to oppose it. So the developer said, that's it. We will build it as of right, which means per the letter of the code and without any variances. Hames redesigned the building, eliminating the small portion that was to be taller and changing the site plan to accommodate the required 20-foot setback. He stripped off all of the articulation and setbacks on the side facing the neighboring building because there wasn't room, and the developer no longer felt the need to incur the costs required to curry favor with the neighbors. We gave them an unadorned brick wall facing their building because we had to push our own building so far back on the property. In the end, it took the developer and his team more than 2 years to obtain the approvals required to build a small 20-unit condominium project, and by then, it was late to market. The project opened in 2007 just as the housing bubble burst. The condominium units failed to sell at the pro forma prices, so the developer was unable to fully repay the construction loan. The bank foreclosed on the property and sold it to another developer who converted it to apartments. In addition to providing architectural design services to developers, David Hames and his partner have done some small development projects themselves, and Hames is also the head of his own community organization, so he has seen development from those viewpoints too. There are still some in my community group who harbor those really harsh feelings about developers. They just don't want change. They don't trust developers because anything a developer does is going to be a change, and so they hammer any developer who comes in. Fortunately, says Hames, over time, my community group has become more sensitive and understanding of what development is. We have also come to understand that we are better off having a say than not being involved at all, because if you take the attitude you don't want to talk to somebody, then you are going to have to live with the consequences. Hames sympathizes with how the public views developers, but at the same time he finds that the whole process is far too distrustful to be productive. When Hames presents at a public meeting, his job is to support his client by positively representing the project. But Hames said he almost always fully backs and believes in what he is doing for the client. That is why it's disturbing for us when the developer really is making an honest and forthright effort, but he's being abused and we are being called liars and whores. Hames is disturbed not only because the developer's efforts are being minimized, but also because good things for communities are being passed up, like what happened in Evanston.